Hello there, folks. Welcome again to yet another massacre. This time it is Owen Jones going up against Lin Mei on the subject of statutory sick pay, specifically whether it should be increased. Now, I don't understand what the hell Lin Mei is playing at in life. I hear she is perfectly successful at whatever it is she does, so I'm at a loss as to why she insists on turning up on Channel 5 to make herself look foolish. It's as if she is attempting to plough her own furrow towards the final destination of Grifterville, but unfortunately keeps tripping over her own feet. Lin Mei claims to be a supporter of Brexit, but struggles to explain why. Just like she struggles to explain any of the arguments she spews from her gob. So, for Channel 5 producers to throw her into the bear pit against Owen Jones is the intellectual equivalent of putting prime Mike Tyson into the ring with a 5-year-old. Just listen to her here, scrambling desperately to find an argument that can land a blow on her opponent. I have to say, Lin is probably as out of her depth as anybody I have ever seen willingly participate in debate. I don't understand why she's doing this. It's quite funny, actually. Owen Jones can't believe what he's seeing, can't believe what he's hearing, can't believe what he's up against. For what it's worth, my opinion on statutory sick pay is really quite well summed up by Owen Jones. It's far too low. Far too low. How anybody can be expected, when they are unwell, to look after themselves, let alone their families, on £109.40 a week is a goddamn disgrace. Average rent per month in the United Kingdom is £1,200. Let that sink in. Alright, let's take a look.
Workers are currently entitled to £109.40 a week for up to 26 weeks if they're off ill. But a new report has suggested that increasing the statutory rate and paying it from the first day of sickness could provide a £4 billion economic boost and actually cut staff absences. That's because poorly workers who don't take time off could be less productive and exacerbate their physical or mental ailments. Are you with this, Owen? What do you think this is a good idea to increase sick pay?
Yes, spot on. I mean, we've got one of the lowest levels of sick pay in the rich world. Only, I think, the US is lower out of 44 countries, and the US doesn't have statutory sick pay, so that's easy for them to beat us on that measure. The problem with this, that level of sick pay, is firstly, millions aren't eligible for it. Self-employed people don't get statutory sick pay at all. Lots of workers now are contracted out. They're classed as self-employed, so they don't have that basic right. And the low level means that lots of people who are ill, and we had this problem during the pandemic, they think to themselves, well, look, I could take a massive cut to my earnings, or I could try and provide for my family who, particularly in the cost of living crisis. The problem then is they spread the illnesses to other employees, and also they're slower to recover. And because they're slower to recover, they're less productive. Britain has a productivity crisis. Our productivity has stagnated now since 2010. So it makes sense to say, look, if you're ill, stay off work. In Sweden, Germany, they have much, much higher sick pay than us, and they have much higher productivity. I think that's one reason. I think it's best to learn from countries like Sweden, where they're richer than us, they have bigger economies per person than us.
Higher tax.
But they have higher living standards. That's a good argument in favour of taxing rich people more. So I would say stop forcing people into work when they're ill, which is what our current system does. Let them take time off, recover quicker, and stop spreading illnesses around workplaces.
Let me just remind us of the statutory sick pay, because I think I said 8 weeks, it's 28 weeks. So Britons can currently receive £109.40 a week in statutory sick pay for up to 28 weeks. I'm guessing you don't agree with Owen, Lin.
No, and that's a really long time. And I think we also need to be careful about what we consider to be sick nowadays. We know that we are a society that whinges about the smallest of things, a common cold, or even like just not feeling up to it. And that's why people will call in sick. And I think this incentivizes people to actually call in sick more often. And then what you're going to have is small businesses are going to suffer because they're going to have to find cover. As you said, 28 weeks is an incredibly long time. And it was just in March that I don't know why the government's even suggesting this, because it was just in March we were trying to get 2.5 million people back into work who were long time off sick. So for me...
That's a separate matter. Those are people.
No, for me,
that's
this is but it starts off there. If you start to create this culture of incentivizing people to be ill, then it will go on to long-term illness. And what we're trying to do is get people back into work, more motivated. It's about a healthy lifestyle, healthy way of thinking, and oftentimes illnesses can be connected to those.
So this whole idea is that people are just going to live on statutory sick pay. If you live for up to 28 weeks, people think that's a long time. That's ages. That would mean having a total salary of £440 a week, a month, sorry, £440 a month. Nobody can live on that. That's the point. You cannot live on that whatsoever. The idea that you can support a family on £110 a week is clearly ludicrous. That's the problem. People aren't able to afford to live on statutory sick pay. So if you're ill, if you're actually quite ill, lots of people just go into work and they spread the illness. And that kills people. I'm sorry to say, people die. Of course people die.
We're living longer. Like we're less from the 30s.
We've got record numbers of long-term sickness at the minute.
And they'll be increased if we go ahead with this.
So you think that will only get worse if we,
I do, if we are going to incentivise people and they're going to take longer time off of work, small businesses are already...
Do you think people enjoy taking time off work?
I think, do you know what? I think we've got into this culture now from COVID where we don't want to leave our house oftentimes. That's why
people remotely.
And I have a love-hate battle with this because I do work remotely as well. However, I can see the damage it's doing to smaller like cities or towns where there's no income coming in, and also mental health. Yeah, when you wake up, you don't feel like getting out of bed. You don't feel like leaving your house. But in terms of connecting with people and socialising, it's so important for human contact. And I think we're often getting into this habit of like, oh, I'm sick. Are you really sick? Can you really not work? Because like I said, now I don't think we are a resilient
Can I ask
society.
Why in Germany, where statutory sick pay is much, much, much higher than in Britain, why do they have so...
Why do we compare ourselves to countries where our demographics are completely different?
Every other country with statutory sick pay, every other country in the rich world, apart from the US, which doesn't have statutory sick pay, they have maternity pay, let alone statutory sick pay. Why is it in every other country they have higher statutory sick pay and they don't have the problems you talk about? In fact... the Nordic countries, Germany, they have higher productivity.
Let's take a call on this.
Doesn't make any sense.
Let's see what Linda thinks in Norfolk. Hi there, Linda.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for being with us. I'd like to know what you think, Linda. Do you think sick pay should be increased? Do you think it'll benefit and boost the economy overall?
No, I think before actual sick pay is increased, it ought to be looked into more that people who are subcontractors, they get no sick pay whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So if they're off sick, they have to fund themselves. They don't get any sick pay at all. They can get it through the government, but they don't get it through their firms. Mm. So, I mean, they get nothing like that. They don't get holiday pay. There's loads of things they don't get.
Agreed.
And I think that should be looked into much more, because really, if it wasn't for subcontractors in building, plumbers and things like that, you wouldn't have all the builds that your people want nowadays, all the new buildings. So I think they should be looked after a lot better than they are.
But then that's the choice that's the choice that we make. I myself am a contractor, and I know I could be, stabbing my foot here, but I've decided to contract because I make more money. So in order for me to make more money, I have to take the sacrifice that they're not going to be able to give me all of those things, such as, statutory sick pay and those other benefits.
So if someone came into work today and they thought to themselves, well, I can't afford to take time off, I've got gastric flu.
Yeah. Well,
would you be happy getting gastric flu?
I pay between £20 and £30 a month to cover me, and what I'm covered is far better than me being...
Would you be happy people coming to work with... Because that's what happens at the moment. People definitely go into work when they have, for example, gastric flu.
You can't leave the house with gastric flu.
You can
Is that
the initial
you
symptoms
throwing
of,
up and both ends? And...
The initial
but some
symptoms
people
of
might
gastric
try and
flu,
force
they do.
themselves if they know that they haven't got the support from their sick pay package.
They absolutely do. I'm just giving you one illness. I mean, influenza, COVID.
Yeah, we can say that about anything, though.
Well, of course you can, but that's the point. At the moment, people who are ill, 100%, every day, right now, there are people in workplaces who are ill. And they are going into work because they can't afford to live a statutory sick pay. And they are spreading it around their offices.
But that's how
and they are making other people
That's how the
ill.
body builds up resilience and tolerance.
You can't be serious.
I am. I don't mind if a person has a cold at work.
We're talking about the flu.
Oh, man up. Come on.
You can't
Let's speak to Andrew in Manchester. Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
Hi. Good to have you with us. What do you think?
Good to be here.
What do you think, Andrew?
Absolutely need to increase it. As I said to your colleagues, that basically nobody with bills can survive on £109 a week. Let's say, just for example, your council tax. Mine's about £100 a week. £100 a month. United Utilities water is about £60 a month. That's before we even take food into consideration, gas, electricity, etc., etc., etc. The lady that was saying before on the show, I'm sorry, I don't know her name, but she was saying, people would maybe take time off work because it would incentivise them not to work. Absolute rubbish. I'm sorry, but it is. Nobody would take 26 weeks or 28 weeks off, or even 5 weeks at £109 a week because they were.
If you increase it, they might.
Well, no, not really, because they won't increase it exponentially anyway, and they still wouldn't be able to pay the bills. If somebody's just on national minimum wage, for example, and let's say that's just over £10 an hour, and they do a 35-hour week, that would be £350. There's no way on God's green planet this government or any government is going to increase statutory sick pay.
And where's the money going to come from?
But also,
where's the money going to come from?
Well, there's loads of ways we could fund it.
Just quickly on that, by the way, other countries, as we've already established, have much higher levels of statutory sick pay, and you don't have people just taking weeks off work with no cause. But also, you can't take weeks off work without getting a sick note. You can't just say I'm ill
it's easy to get
disappear
Don't be so
for
naive.
28 weeks. The fact is,
on.
in other countries, this system works, and
their taxes are higher. I don't want to pay higher taxes.
I want rich people to pay more tax.
Who's a rich person?
Top
What
five,
salary? What salary?
80 grand plus.
Let's speak
80
to Oliver.
grand is a rich
That's the top
person.
5%.
Birmingham.
Top 5%.
Get involved. What do you think?
Hello to the first.
Hi, Oliver. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi
Hello.
there.
Thanks for being with us. Do you agree with Owen or Lin, Oliver?
What was that, sorry?
Do you agree with Owen or Lin? Do you think that sick pay should be increased? Do you think that would help or not?
No, not at all. I think after COVID, with companies almost going bump left, right and centre, I think to now increase sick pay will just be the nail in the coffin for a lot of companies. I think with talks about menstrual pay and everything like that and a 4-day week, I think when's it going to stop? Is it going to stop when the whole country shuts down?
Oliver, you talk about nails in the coffin. You were actually talking about the nails and coffins of human beings, because if you have, for example...
Don't be so melodramatic.
If you have people going into... Well, it's not melodramatic.
Nails in coffins.
Hey, listen, please...
Because you've got cold,
Come on, can I finish? I'm sorry to say, the common cold is not the only illness in circulation in modern Britain. People get the flu.
A bit of man flu.
Tens of thousands of people die of the flu every year. As for COVID, over 200,000 people have died.
Serious illnesses, we can't just be talking about the cold,
Clearly, there are illnesses which kill people, like the flu. When you go into work, you spread an illness. Those people then spend time with their families, and some of those vulnerable members of those families die. That 100% happens. Do you value human life over asking companies to pay the same rate as other European countries, which do better than us in productivity and the economy?
Taxed to high heaven. We need growth. We can't keep on taxing. We don't have the money for this.
But if you want growth...
If you've got a secret money tree, get it out. Then we can pay for it.
But this is why it's so self-defeating. The point is they're making clear in the study this would increase growth, because at the moment we have a productivity problem. And one of the problems with productivity is lots of
We've
people
got a laziness problem.
Lots of
That's what
people
we've got.
lots of people are working when they're ill. They're making their recoveries longer, because if you work when you're ill, then you take longer to recover, and that costs companies money. It's self-defeating.
Do you think increasing sick pay would actually realistically boost growth and give people a bit more financial security, help their mental health, stop spreading diseases, as you say?
Of course
Do you
it
think
would.
this is the answer?
But by definition, it would mean spreading less illnesses, and the more you spread illness, the more you get other people sick, so they take time off work, and they take longer to recover, which costs companies money. This is what's known as a false economy. If you think to yourself, I'll save money by not doing something, but what you do is you end up costing yourself money, because you end up making people spreading illnesses around the workplace and taking longer to recover.
We're creating
That
a
costs money.
mamby-pamby state. We're creating everything. We want money for something because we're not resilient anymore as a nation.
Money for
Take
something.
your vitamin C's, have a healthy lifestyle, eat fruit and vegetables, and you will hardly fall sick.
Right,
You're
we're
acting like a
gonna
pantomime villain. This
move
is
on because
ridiculous.
You're
we've got
saying
no
no
doctors in the
coffee.
building to verify that, Lynn. Oliver, thank you so much.
Wow. Just wow. Do you reckon she has any idea how poorly she comes across? Do you think she even cares? Everything about her screams grifter, but I rarely see her cropping up anywhere other than Channel 5. So she clearly isn't very good at grifting, as GB News and Talk TV don't appear to have yet snapped her up. Perhaps they will on the back of this legendary performance. Alright, just a quick one for you there. I'm on the road again for the next couple of weeks, so any uploads may be few and far between. I'll try and do one a day, but I can't really commit to it. You may hear the audio is different. I'm currently in a minibus. Yes, a minibus. Sat in the back of a minibus. What fun. Alright, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again soon.